Hey guys, it's Average, welcome back to the channel, and today we're taking a look at a brand new local legend. And of course we just had the Nordics released for their version 2. This is the Saab B17A. Now the Saab B17 is of course a World War II era aircraft, and a response to a 1938 request from the Swedish Air Force for a recon aircraft to replace the old Fokker S6. Now this was of course design was started by the end of the 30s as the L10, and of course it was accepted in as a B17 and the S-17 forward bomber and recon versions respectively. Now, yes, it is a bomber, it has a bomb bay as well. Small, light bomber, very early concept in World War II. Light bombers were quite common. They were a niche role, to be honest. Now, of course, it's a conventional kind of mid-wing cantilever monoplane with a big greenhouse canopy on there for a single radial engine at the front of it, and it has retractable landing gear, so a pretty common design. Introduced into service in 1942, it served with primarily Imperial Ethiopian Air Force, the Royal Danish Air Force, and the Swedish Air Force, and there were 326 built up until 1944. Now, in terms of her performance, she can get up to about 235 knots max, 200 knots cruise. Minimum control speed is 67 knots. I'm not sure what it specifies stall speed there. Range is 920 nautical miles, so rather good there. Service ceiling of 32,000 feet. And her power is a Piaggio, so an Italian PX Ibis RC40, 14-cylinder air-cooled radial, putting out 1,000 horsepower. And it runs an Italian Piaggio propeller as well. So there you go. Bunch of liveries that come with this aircraft, of course. As we expect, we've got Swedish, Finnish, we have Ethiopian, and we have Microsoft ones, which no one's hugely in favour of. Let's go take a look, shall we? Now, I'm having a quick... This is my first time seeing this plane full stop, okay? I have not touched this before I take a look at it. Hey, it's a first look for a reason. We're taking a quick look. Now... Oh, we've got a hole there. I can see the seat. I suppose I should try to speak like Swedish. I'm very bad at this. Then again, we could always do Finnish and just sound really monotone and kind of like we're going to kind of go out to get drinking instead because it's much more fun than doing this. Sorry, my accents are terrible and I will insist on continuously doing them. Now, this is an Inibuilds aircraft. We just got their MU2 for the last one. So it's got two back-to-back Inibuilds aircraft. And they have been some cool ones, like the 108 Typhoon, which I did rather like. So they're kind of a hit and miss from what we've seen from them. Like, compared to the last one, the MU2, I don't know. It certainly looks okay. Let's take a look inside. I'd say it looks a little better than the MU2, but it's a warbird. There's a lot more business going on, so it's therefore easier to have things happening. Now, we have got a little... Where is it? Is it under there? I need to click on... I know there's a click spot somewhere. Oh, wait, is it here? There we go. The click spot for the EFB. Of course, we've got our departure and arrival stuff. We've got local Zulu. Someone reminded me what those two mean, because I'm being thick. Moving map system. Useful. Settings, cockpit language, English and Swedish. So we can go to English. And we can go to Swedish. I'm going to go back to English because I am English and stupid and only speak one language. But we are in Norway. And I don't do a Norwegian accent. I do Finnish and I do Swedish. Both terribly. But there you go. Primer there and our de-ice course. Useful to have de-icing in an aircraft from the Nordics, to be brutally honest. Right, how do we open this? That's our... Okay, that was fairly simple. It's a hinge open style. So it's not something you'll have open mid-flight. Because I probably won't want to close. So there is that. Can we sidle back into the navigator's cockpit? We can. And we have our instruments down there. Do we have a handle to open? Ah, yes. Forward it comes. Now we have what would be flare holders there. And you could have a flare launcher in the back with the navigator. Or bombardier, depending on the role they're taking in the aircraft. Useful to have that, of course, and these probably do read out. So we have got speed, time, and altitude, all the various useful instruments and tricks and trinkets. We'll close this here. That's our starter cover. Oh, that's just the actual starter in there. It's not actually something we have to click. Right, we're going to go through the checklist and get this thing started, and we'll take it for a spin. Now, Inibuilds have said it has a full-on comprehensive checklist, so we'll make sure this works. Landing gear is down. Let's confirm that is set down for us. It is down. Emergency gear is there. Useful. Trim is neutral. Correct. Reserve pumps are off. We're going to skip it. Oh, what's engine start? This is engine start. We'll be careful. We'll get ahead of time. So mixture to full. That's full. Prop is fine. And throttle is half an inch forward. So there we go. Throttle is half an inch forward. Reserve fuel pump to on. That'll be down there. So pop that beastie on, shall we? Probably the battery on for that to actually be useful. Where are those? That would have been a preliminary checklist, I suspect, which we didn't do. Unless it doesn't have a battery, which is entirely plausible. Avionics off. Those are set to off. Okay, carb heat is cold. Cowl flap set to is open. That's the cowl flaps here. Now, this is a downside. I'm not a big fan of the having to click and roll, because you can zoom in and out horribly, and I don't necessarily find a central spot to click on it with, so that could be a problem. We'll go back over here. So these are all checked through. We did those already. Throttle lever half inch forward, magnetors to both, so that would be to both. There we go. That is already on. Mixture level to normal. Oh, we have a normal. We actually have normal to move it to normal. There we go. And just started to rotate. That was a surprisingly easy start. There's not exactly a ton of complexity in this from what I can tell. Oh, and she still stops either way. So, let's try this again, shall we? Didn't want to do that, apparently. Does it want to start? It doesn't want to start. Fuel tanks. There we go. It's always something simple, isn't it, with me? Okay, we're on reserve. Ah, okay. We'll go with the fuel tank. A fuel tank is often a wise choice. Priming not necessarily by the sound of things. There we go. Turns out having fuel was the bright idea in this aircraft. On. So we have got what you need for that sim. There is no autopilot control there, of course, which is unfortunately what it is. But we'll quickly, whilst we're sitting here, that's our bomb door. Please don't be another... Oh god, it is. It's another click and hold. If this takes 3 turns to wind all the way around, and they haven't given it a quick click it once and it goes all the way mode, or a different way of scrolling through and controlling that, I will be quite miffed. It does appear to be click and hold for the entire duration of the time, and wait for it to do its job. However, you can click and look back up again and still be holding the mouse button, and be just fine. How open is the bomb bay? Let's find out. By going underneath the aircraft. Turns out, actually not that open, unfortunately. Boy, did that take a while to get through the bomb bay doors. Let me quickly pull open the checklists here. Do we have anything referenced in their manual, which is included, of course, with the aircraft regarding our bomb bay doors? It's not specifying in here for me from what I'm seeing. We've got the various panels showing. It's a very comprehensive manual, I will give them. We have a full load of checklists there as well if you don't want to use the in-sim ones. You have got that one. Rotate these levers to open the relative flaps. So yes, it's a matter of rotating, just click and hold, unfortunately. So that is just what we're going to have to work along with. You know, I'm going to close this because it's really loud and relatively annoying. So, oh, interesting. Where is the actual lever? Is it above our head now? It is indeed. We have to reach up above ourselves to find that one. Makes the noise a bit more tolerable. Right, so we have to click and sit here and hold this for another 20 minutes whilst it slowly rotates around. Now, I know that the Flying Iron aircraft that have options, we saw that with the Hellcat, or the Wildcat I think it was, they had the option where you could set to crank and to rotate mode. So one mode would allow you to essentially click it and it would go all the way to a stop, so cowl flaps closed open, or bomb bay closed open if it had one, or you could do an incremental mode where it would allow you to do this and click through to a specific opening, which is fair, it's realistic, but it's also a pain in the backside when you have a situation where you are dealing with a click spot. You have to sit here and hold. So not my favourite feature, if I'm honest, for those two operations, because this being a real aircraft, we can't reach down and grab those levers and wind them ourselves with our hand whilst looking out the windshield of flying aircraft. So it becomes a little bit trickier to manage from a simulation perspective rather than a realism one. And whilst I'm sitting here winding this, I realise I'm literally filling time to do just that. So those are, I'm not sure what those do, but that's our click spot for that. Close the starter cover here. We have some fuel gauge selectors showing which tank is actually showing. Mags are there. I believe these are going to be our fuses, but of course they don't pop, they don't do anything. So there is that. Right. Let's get ourselves out of here, shall we? Now, as always, there's one thing I will forget when it comes to making a video. In this particular case, it was turning on my head tracking. For those who are curious, I use the Grass Monkey Simulations Puck by them. It's a fantastic set. It's been doing me reliable service for quite a while now. Dear God, I have the wrong camera plugged in. Let's not do that, because if I unplug it now, it'll never work. So we're just going to fly with the hat switch, because we'll be just fine, frankly. Okay, so that's the ½ inch crack that gave us some motion as we came forward. We'll hold a brake here to turn us around. We're in Norway right now, one of the scenic add-on airports we have. There we go. Yeah, we'll just have to be old school here and fly with a hat switch, like a normal person. Holding the tail wheel all the way back here for me. Try and encourage it to behave itself. We should have plenty of runway, so I'm just going to take it down to the very end here, just to give us a bit more wiggle. I'm not sure how much this will need to land. And confirm tail wheel lock is removed. Well, I'm getting tail wheel locking movement, so that should be fine. I will check it though, which requires me to find where it is. That's the parking brake there. We'll check for a tail wheel lock when we're done. Here we are. Okay. Right, so that's that. Take-off checklists. I'm looking for a reference to one. There isn't one. It's a climb checklist. There's no tail wheel in the checklists. You think a tail wheel lock would be in the checklists. It's typically a fairly popular item. Come on, turn you pig. A little bit slow on the turning, and the nose is quite high in this aircraft, which makes our work a little bit more difficult. Oh, now she wants to respond. Oh, hang on a second. No, it's exactly the same response. I thought it might be the kind of aircraft where you have a castering behaviour from the tail wheel when it's in neutral stick position, but when the stick is aft, some aircraft will engage a tail wheel mechanism. I've had that happen in some aircraft, so that's one thing we'll note, of course. That's canopy lock, of course. Those are oxygen flows. Tail wheel lock would be a lever or a switch somewhere. That is our fire. That lever doesn't click at all. You'll often see me kind of hovering over things trying to click them to see if they are clickable or I'm simply moving in the wrong spot. Often it's hard to tell what is and isn't clickable. That's meant to be turned off by now. Okay, let's get her for a wheel. Maybe the tail lock is removed as a actual lock that is placed into it manually from the outside. I don't know, I'm not Swedish. Okay, so little bit of a left pull on takeoff roll until the tail comes up. Then she's actually relatively manageable, a little bit of a jab of the control surface, and speed builds pretty quickly. She lifts away. Sounds are quite nice, I'll say that much. They're not terrible. God, it feels so weird to be hat switching like this. But I'm trying to make this a very virginal first impression. I try to do this with as many of these reviews as I do. I want it to be my first look at an aircraft because I want it to feel authentic and what you guys will experience. And this was something people say, why don't you spend hours and hours learning the aircraft before you review it? Ah, well, if I do that, then I will know all the idiosyncrasies and weirdnesses. I will not be frustrated because I can't find it initially, and sit there going, what the hell do I do for this? Because I'll know it. You won't. When you get something, you'll be trying it the first time, and you'll be saying, I don't know how to use this, this is weird. Just like that landing gear, which is very, very weird. Let's retract that landing gear. As it comes all the way back, and I like how the gear fairing is part of the actual gear leg. I mean, so the front of it slightly more aerodynamic, I suppose. There must be very good dive brakes to use those. It's an odd little aircraft with that big, long greenhouse canopy. We used no flaps on takeoff there, didn't need any, but we are light. Let's pull our power here. into operating range. Now, what are these instruments? What are we looking at? We have oil temperature, that's hot as hell. Cowl flaps seem to be... I believe this is the right direction. I'm clicking and holding. I'm just waiting for it to get to a stop and see if it decides if it wants to say that's open or closed. We're holding it. Okay. We hold it for quite some time. If we go exterior, those are opening up. Okay, so those are opening. That was the open direction. We'll see our oil temperature hopefully drop down. As we look around, what have we got? So that's our... Is that speed? I believe that is our manifold right here. Fuel. Excellent, excellent. Everything's making some sense. A semblance of logic. Our airport is back over to our left there, in northern Norway. Out on the peninsula, actually, in fact, out towards the North Sea. The area is very pretty. I need to do more flying out here because there's some rather gorgeous scenery. Obviously, you wouldn't open this canopy in flight, which of course does give it some, well, not intentionally, I suppose, give it some idiosyncrasies over. Oh, we can at least open the windows. At least that's a click. See, this is what I meant by a progressive versus a hold down click system. This one I can just go click and it will maneuver it / twist it. Whereas if I wanted to basically do the bomb bays, I would have to go and constantly click and click and click and click and click, which, as you can tell, would be mildly frustrating due to it taking forever. Right, so our airport should be down here somewhere. Off to us, it's right there, off our side window. So far, enjoying this. It's a very gentle plane. We've got quite a few warbirds, but this is a relatively cheap one. Yes, it's niche. Of course, this is local legend, so $14 or $8 if you have a discount. It's cheap compared to a lot of the other warbirds out there on the market. Is it niche? Yes. Does it have some comforts like... You'll probably find a lot of the default autopilot keybinds will still work in aircraft like these, so having a moving map, transponder and a radio, probably default keybinds will function, so you'd be able to set a heading. It would work. So, plausibly possible to use for this kind of operation. In fact, I'm going to test that real quick. I need to find my phone and my torch so I can see. Autopilot button there. So I press U. Then I press heading, which is right here, and it should stay on course. It's not responding at all. So it may not work in this aircraft. That was me pressing the autopilot bind buttons I have on my Honeycomb Bravo. Didn't work, so clearly not functioning in this aircraft, but you could change that in the aircraft config. It's changing a 0 to a 1 for autopilot enabled, actually. So the aircraft CFG, if it's the same as FSX, you can just flick it across with a button. Nice and easy. So if you wanted that functionality, you can give it to yourself. Texturing on the main panel is not my favourite. It's a little felty looking. It's a bit weird, I'm not sure. A little bit two-dimensional, even though it's got those kind of textured 3D recesses. We can roll over and see if this shadow changes. Okay, no. It does seem to actually change, so it isn't... No, that's not textured shadow, but that's the 3D material shadow, which is a little bit odd in certain materials. Like, it just looks a little bit too low grain, personally. The rest of the actual surfaces look okay. The metals and the materials look good, so for what you get, it's not awful. I actually have no qualms with various metal parts, components, seats, textures of metal. That seat looks like it was cast rather than... It might be cast aluminium. Cast aluminium? I'm not a metallurgist, I don't know. It looks quite rough. It looks like cast iron. Not sure. I don't think the Swedish would have made it out of steel to be armoured. That's not something I think they'd do. Okay, so for her price, a very versatile, interesting little plane. Of course, now we have things like the Gottfriend's avatars. You've got, of course, World War II pilots to throw into your World War II planes, so they don't look quite so incongruous. Technically a bomber. No bombs, of course. A And it's not an American or British or German aircraft, which is nice. You have another option from the general kind of world of the Allies and the neutral countries. Sweden, of course, neutral. Finland, not so much, who were, of course, involved in World War II, and they operated this as well. Although theirs is bright yellow, so I'm assuming it's a post-war trainer. Or they used it for... We'll turn around and we'll land here in a second. I've always just liked the Tricorona Swedish roundel on the wing there. Tricorona, 3 crown. Tricorona. I don't know how to pronounce it properly. Alright, let's get ourselves turned around here so we'll get gear down. So our speed is within range. And we're in flap range, so I'll put 1 notch of flaps down as we're going to begin our 180 degree to final. Okay, in she comes. I do like this actually. It's weird, but I like it. It's not my usual plane, and I normally like my classic Allied aircraft, but there's something odd about the Swedish and the Danish or the Dutch, I should say, designs like the Fokkers and the Saabs during World War II. They were very weird, and sometimes weird's kind of cool. And I will say the terrain around here is gorgeous. I definitely want to do more flying up here in Norway and Sweden. Now we have the update. Maybe a little bit of Denmark too. Get some Viking flying going on. I think I'll pull up the Viking Air Beaver skin. That'll be a good one. It's appropriate, isn't it? Here we come. Nice and stable. So we're at 80 knots. So 67s are minimum control. We want to keep above that. Nose is going to be pretty high for us. And I can't lean up now because I've got my fixed head position, which is a little bit weird for me. So I'll just raise my head slightly here, like I'm craning my neck up. Okay, throttle's closed. Guide her down here. Let's make sure we keep an eye on the speeds. Little bit here of throttle just to keep her in control. I'm keeping myself off to the left nose-wise just for visibility's sake. Okay, I can see the runway's big enough now and close enough. Wonderful, wonderful. Which is a little bit nose heavy, so I have to keep an eye on that. Oh, I bounced. Let's try and make that the last bounce we do. Keep the nose higher here. There we go. Very scrapey sound. Very scrapey sound. Need to watch my brakes because it did try and tip earlier, so I'm trying to release these brakes as we get towards the end of the rollout. Okay, gentle braking. Gentle. Okay. There we go, release the brakes before she comes to a stop. Nice, okay. Not bad at all. So as far as the aircraft goes, I think it's got a lot of potential. It's a fun little plane that definitely becomes quite interesting to fly. The opening window's a nice touch, which I didn't think it could do before, but it certainly seems to be able to. Where are we going? There we go. There's our turn-off point. I like the tower. It's a very World War II British tower. Not that it is, but it's that same style. Well, it's not actually that same style. It's the same kind of smaller G-field tower type you tend to get. But I will say, this is a rather enjoyable little plane. Some of these local legends I've really not been down for myself, but this is one I could definitely see myself flying again. Because it's something a bit different. And a bit different is always fun. You don't want to fly the same things always. Let's cut that engine there, and we'll take a look on the outside before we say goodbye. And oh, didn't actually look at the landing gear, did I? On my usual pre-flight check around. There's a lot of prefab metal textures going on inside there, but actually surprisingly good detail. Higher detail than I'd perhaps expect otherwise. And that gear's still so weird. But I like it. Good plane. Cheap price. Well worth the look we go. And I only bounced once. I blame the Italian propeller. Bye.